The face of modern warfare is changing, yet some shadows persist, silent hunters carrying on the deadliest legacy of centuries-old tradition. Across Ukraine's endless plains, a heartbeat behind a rifle barrel belongs not only to a soldier, but to a nation's will to exist. Today we place under the microscope the modern heirs of Lady Death, Ukraine's invisible female snipers, the very name of whom still makes even the highest-ranking Russian commanders flinch. This is not a tale of heroism. It is an anatomy of flawless patience, mathematical precision, and operations executed with surgical discipline. With leaked field reports we analyze how a single trigger pull can shift strategic balances, how these women have paralyzed Kremlin logistical lines, and how one woman can halt an entire battalion. The brightest and most mysterious figure in this silent war is the sniper known by the code name Sultan. Whenever Sultan appears at the darkest points of the front line, the concept of safe zone vanishes entirely for Russian occupation units. She is not merely a sniper, she is a psychological warfare specialist. According to intelligence data from the field, among the high-value targets neutralized in a single night operation by Sultan were senior officers from Russia's elite airborne forces, VDV. What sets her apart is not only her ability to hit from 1.5 kilometers, but her capacity to infiltrate the target's mind. Sultan and operators like her have turned Russia's advance in Donbass and Kharkiv from a military operation into a hunting ground. Their mere existence is the #1 source of the infamous, invisible death, fear spreading among Russian soldiers. Sultan is far from alone. The Lady Death tradition has evolved into an entire force across Ukrainian skies and soil. Call signs such as Charcoal, Joan of Arc, and many others. These women target not only infantry units but Russia's logistical arteries. Neutralizing the driver at the head of a fuel convoy or the operator in a communications tower with a single bullet can paralyze an entire armored division for hours, sometimes days. Every victory they achieve is not just one fewer enemy soldier, it is proof that billions of dollars of Russian military investment can be rendered helpless by a few $100 bullet and iron will. The numbers do not lie. In sectors where sniper teams are active, Russian units suffer 30% higher morale collapse and desertion rates. The cost to Russia extends far beyond manpower. Modern warfare's most expensive assets, optics, command and control vehicles, precision munitions management, are directly in these women's crosshairs. A successful sniper shot disrupts Russian field coordination, forcing larger mistakes that become open targets for Ukrainian artillery. In other words, these women serve as both the eyes and the trigger of Ukraine's defense mechanism. From a pro-Ukrainian perspective, this is a struggle for freedom. From a purely strategic viewpoint, it is low-cost, high-impact attrition warfare. What will happen next? The Ukrainian armed forces are now training female snipers not only as individual operators but as hybrid units integrated with drone, UAV, systems. Night vision optics, thermal cameras, and AI-supported target acquisition algorithms combined with this female resolve, are turning the battlefield into a complete labyrinth for Russia. As urban fighting intensifies in the coming period, the impact of these units will only grow. Every building, every ruin will become a potential end point for Russian forces. From the standpoint of journalistic ethics and the data, Russia's countermeasures against this invisible threat, heavy bombardment and area clearance strategies, are causing even more civilian casualties and fueling local resistance determination. In other words, every harsh move Moscow makes actually delivers more volunteers and more resolute snipers to the Ukrainian side. This is not a vicious cycle. It is a downward spiral of collapse for Russia. This technological integration is not merely an equipment upgrade, it represents a profound paradigm shift in Ukraine's military doctrine. As of 2026, field data shows that under the Invisible Hunter program, Ukraine has transformed female snipers into AI nodes. In traditional sniping, the greatest risk is position disclosure after firing. In these new hybrid units, the sniper receives a 3D mapped data feed of the target via drones before even pulling the trigger. Looking at real numbers, Ukrainian Defense Ministry statistics indicate that female sniper teams integrated with the Delta situational awareness system have increased target acquisition speed by 45%. In this setup, a Baba Yaga drone scans forested areas with thermal sensors. The resulting coordinates are analyzed by artificial intelligence and transmitted directly to the sniper's ballistic computer. This enables calculations far beyond basic physics equations like incorporating wind speed, humidity, gravity, and other variables in real time through complex algorithms. Our analysis of urban combat yields even more striking results. Statistics from devastated cities such as Bakhmut and Avdiivka prove that the patience and low heart rate control of female snipers have created an asymmetric advantage against Russia's heavy armored units. When Russia's numerically superior but qualitatively weak Storm Z formations enter these labyrinths, they do not face only a rifle, they confront a web of death orchestrated by satellites, drones, and razor-sharp mines. From an economic and military attrition standpoint, the cost to Russia of neutralizing a single female sniper, in artillery shells and air support, reaches approximately 150 times the value of the target itself. This is an unsustainable cost equation. The Kremlin's area clearance strategy is bleeding more heavily every day against Ukraine's precision strike doctrine. Where will this technological evolution push the psychological boundaries of war? In the next phase, the ethical limits of autonomous targeting systems and how human will synchronizes with these machines will become the central agenda item for the global defense industry. Ukraine's hybrid female units are not only fighting today's war, they are the first real-world test bed for tomorrow's robotic human hybrid warfare. This cost asymmetry provides numerical proof of why Russia's traditional steamroller strategy has collapsed. Russian military doctrine has relied since World War II on massive firepower to break resistance points. Yet today, the thermal reconnaissance flights, guided missiles, or dozens of howitzer shells expended to locate and eliminate a single Ukrainian female sniper are tearing gigantic holes in the Russian budget. Analyses show that Russia's efforts to neutralize one Ukrainian precision strike operator cost millions of rubles, while that same operator, with a single bullet, can create an irreparable gap in the Russian command chain by taking out a key officer or communications specialist. The most critical metric here is the attrition ratio. Ukraine's female snipers are no longer merely rifle-armed infantry, they are managers of information flow. When a female operator in the field designates a Russian T-90 tank with a laser marker or relays the coordinates of an ammunition depot via satellite to headquarters, she orchestrates destruction far beyond the range of her own rifle. This is Ukraine's network-centric warfare capability achieving absolute superiority over Russia's cumbersome, hierarchical command structure. Russia's so-called area clearance strategy, leveling every building to advance, actually creates more hiding spots and kill zones for Ukrainian snipers. Concrete rubble, debris, and destroyed infrastructure turn into perfect fortresses for a modern sniper, places to conceal thermal signatures and apply optical camouflage. Data shows that in urban areas, 40% of Russian armored losses are directly attributable to sniper-directed anti-tank teams or snipers eliminating vehicle commanders. So where does this unsustainable cost equation force Moscow? Historical data and current military projections whisper that Russia's strategy of human and munitions waste is approaching a breaking point. On one side stands a giant desperately hunting a single shadow with thousands of shells, on the other, an intellect that can paralyze the giant's nervous system with a single touch. This is no longer just a territorial war, it is a digital victory of rational intelligence over brute force. For Moscow, the real nightmare is that this cost chasm is not merely a financial loss, it has become a full military reputation bankruptcy. Russia's military doctrine was built on the thesis that numerical superiority always wins. Yet on the digital battlefield of 2026, a Ukrainian female sniper armed with a tablet and a thermal scope can render the strategic plan of an entire armored division worthless. The point where Russia is truly vulnerable is no longer ammunition depots. It is the psychological collapse among soldiers facing invisible death on the ground. Current projections show that Russia, in an attempt to escape this unsustainable cost, is turning toward robotic and autonomous systems, but here it faces an insurmountable wall: technology and qualified human capital. On one side stand Ukrainian female operators using the most sophisticated drones and sniper rifles with surgical precision, on the other stands a cumbersome structure still reliant on analog Soviet-era systems. Russia's human wave tactic, in the face of modern sensor technology, amounts to nothing more than statistical suicide. Delving deeper into the analyses, we see that Russia is already being forced to cut corners on critical defense systems because of this cost table. Budgets that should be allocated to air defense systems are instead being burned on howitzer shells to hunt a handful of invisible operators, leaving Russia's own backyard exposed to strategic strikes. This situation enhances Ukraine's deep strike capability while turning Russia into a snarling but blind camel trapped inside its own cage. What will this digital victory mean for Russian society? Even as the Kremlin's propaganda machine continues to market this asymmetric disaster as strategic withdrawal or planned defense, every wounded soldier returning home brings with him the terror of invisible barrels and drones circling overhead. Russia's breaking point lies in the chasm between the "we are winning" lie fed to the public and the "we are melting away" reality coming from the front. A state may occupy its enemy's land, but when it loses a piece of itself every day to the enemy's technological and mental superiority, that occupation becomes a prison. In conclusion, Moscow stands at the end of this strategic labyrinth facing two paths: either total internal collapse as it exhausts its military capacity, or acceptance of this asymmetric war and retreat at enormous cost. Ukraine's silent hunters are not merely eliminating enemy soldiers, with every trigger pull they are burying an entire era's myth of brute force. This war will not end when the bullets run out. It will end where reason and technology render brute force completely meaningless. History writes not only of those who shout on the battlefields, but also of those who change fate from the shadows. Ukraine's invisible defenders are not merely breaking the Russian army's command chain, they are systematically dismantling every taboo of modern war doctrine. Today, the cold reality leaking through a sniper's scope is redrawing tomorrow's maps. As the Kremlin's brute force slowly melts away in the face of Ukraine's digital and human intelligence, we are witnessing not just a conflict, but the final act of an imperial illusion. Remember this: the loudest attacks sometimes bring the greatest defeats, but the quietest waits always prepare the absolute victory. To stay on the trail of the numbers, leaked reports, and battlefield truths, don't forget to subscribe and share this analysis. Who do you think will ultimately draw the map at the end of this silent war? I'm waiting for your answers in the comments. We'll meet again in the next critical dossier, behind the curtain of mist, with the real facts laid bare. Keep following, we'll continue from the next analysis. Stay sharp.